Great morning, we back with another video, and today we're reading from Leviticus 5, 6, and 7, and we're still talking about the accidental sins and the different offerings that they're going to give, and burnt offerings, grain offerings, the priest's grain offerings. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Different accidental sins. You might be called as a witness and take an oath to tell the truth. If you saw something or knew something but did not tell it, you are guilty of doing wrong and must bear the responsibility for your guilt. You might touch something unclean. It might be the dead body of any kind of animal. You might not know that you touched these things, but you will still become unclean and must pay a fine. You might touch in any of the many things that can make a person unclean. You might touch something unclean, but not know it. When you learn that you have touched something unclean, you must pay a fine. You might make a quick promise to do something. It makes no difference if it is bad or good. People make many kinds of quick promises. You might make such a promise and forget it. When you remember your promise, you must pay a fine because you did not keep it. If you are guilty of any of these things, you must confess whatever you did wrong. Then you must bring your guilt offering to the Lord for the sin you did. You must bring a female lamb or a goat lamb as a sin offering. The priest will do this to make you pure from your sin. You cannot afford a lamb. If you cannot afford a lamb, you must bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the Lord. These will be the guilt offering for your sin. One bird must be for a sin offering, and the other must be for a burnt offering. Take them to the priest. First, the priest will offer one bird for the sin offering. The priest will pull the bird's head from its neck, but he will not pull it off completely. The priest will sprinkle the blood from the sin offering on the side of the altar. Then he will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. Then he will offer a second bird according to the rules for a burnt offering. The priest will do this to make you pure from the sin you did, and God will forgive you. If you cannot afford 2 doves or 2 pigeons, you must bring 8 cups of fine flour as your sin offering. You must not put oil or frankincense on the flour because it is a sin offering. You must bring the flour to the priest. The priest will take a handful of the flour as a memorial offering and bring it to the altar as a gift to the Lord. It is a sin offering. The priest will do this to make you pure, and God will forgive you. The part that is left will belong to the priest, just as the regular grain offering. The Lord gave this command to Moses for the people. You might promise to give something to the Lord. You might sin against me without meaning to, by not giving me what you promised. If you do that, you must bring a ram that has nothing wrong with it, or the same amount in silver using the official measure as a guilt offering. You must give what you promised and add 1/5 of that amount as a fine. Give it to the priest, and he will use the ram to make you pure, and God will forgive you. If you sin and break any of the commands that the Lord said must not be done, you are guilty. Even if you did not know about it, you are still responsible for your sin. You must bring a ram that has nothing wrong with it, or the same amount in silver, to the priest. The priest will offer the ram, and God will forgive you for the sin you did without knowing it. You are guilty, and you must pay the guilt offering to the Lord. Guilt offerings for other sins, Leviticus 6. The Lord told Moses, these rules are for the people. You are guilty of sin against the Lord when you do any of these things. When you lie about what happened to something you were taking care of for someone else. When you lie about a deposit you received. When you steal something, when you cheat someone, when you find something that was lost and lie about it, when you fail to keep a promise, or when you do any other bad things like these. If you do any of these things, you are guilty of doing wrong. You must give back whatever you stole and whatever you took by cheating. You must return whatever you took that another person asked you to hold, or whatever you found and lied about having, or whatever you made a false promise about. You must pay the full price and then add 1/5 of that amount as a fine. and give it all to the true owner. You must also bring a ram to the Lord that has nothing wrong with it, or the same amount in silver, to the priest. Then the priest will go to the Lord to make you pure, and God will forgive you for whichever of these things you did that made you guilty. Burnt offerings. The Lord said to Moses, "Give this command to Aaron and his sons. This is the law of the burnt offering. The burnt offering must stay on the hearth of the altar all night until morning. The altar's fire must be kept burning. The priest must change clothes and put on special linen underwear and linen robe. Then he must gather up the ashes from the fire and burnt offerings and set them down by the altar. Then he must take off the special clothes and put on the other clothes and carry the ashes outside of the camp to a special place that is pure. The fire that was started on the altar must never be allowed to stop burning. Every morning the priest must put wood on the altar. They must arrange the burnt offerings on the wood, and they must burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. That fire must always be kept burning on the altar. It must never be allowed to stop burning. Grain offerings. This is the law for the grain offering. The sons of Aaron will bring it to the front of the altar as an offering to the Lord. There must be some oil and frankincense on the grain offering. The priest will take a handful of fine flour from the grain offering and burn it on the altar as a sweet-smelling memorial offering to the Lord. Aaron and his sons will use the rest of that grain to make bread without yeast. This must be eaten in a holy place. In the courtyard around the meeting tent, I have given this part of the grain offering as the priest's share of the gifts offered to me. Like the sin offering and the guilt offering, it is most holy. It must not be baked with yeast. Any male descendant of Aaron may eat from these gifts to the Lord. This is their share forever throughout your generations. Whatever touches these offerings will be made holy. The priest's grain offering. The Lord said to Moses, "This is the offering that Aaron and his sons must bring to the Lord when Aaron is anointed to be the high priest. They must bring 8 cups of fine flour for a grain offering. This will be offered at the times of the daily offering, half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. The fine flour must be mixed with oil and baked on a pan. After it is cooked, you must bring it in, break it into pieces, and offer it as a sweet-smelling gift to the Lord. In the future, when Aaron's descendants take their place as the anointed priests, they will continue to make this grain offering to the Lord. This rule will continue forever. The grain offering must be completely burned for the Lord. Every grain offering that a priest gives must be completely burned. It must not be eaten." The law of the sin offering. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is the law of the sin offering. The sin offering must be killed in the place where the burnt offering is killed before the Lord. It is most holy. The priest who offers the sin offering must eat it, but he must eat it in a holy place, in the courtyard around the meeting tent. Touching the meat of the sin offering makes a person or a thing holy. If any of the sprinkled blood falls on a person's clothes, you must wash the clothes in a holy place. If the sin offering was boiled in a clay pot, the pot must be broken. If the sin offering was boiled in a bronze pot, the bronze pot must be washed and rinsed in water. Any male in a priest's family may eat the sin offering. It is very holy. But if the blood of the sin offering was taken into the meeting tent and used in the holy place to make people pure, the sin offering must not be eaten. It must be completely burned in the fire." Leviticus 7. Guilt offerings. These are the rules for the guilt offering, which is very holy. A priest must kill the guilt offering in the same place where they killed the burnt offerings. Then he must sprinkle the blood from the guilt offering around the altar. The priest must offer all the fat from the guilt offering. He must offer the fat tail and the fat that covers the inner parts. He must offer the 2 kidneys and the fat covering them at the lower back muscle. He must also offer the fat part of the liver. He must remove it with the kidneys. He must bring these things to the altar as a gift to the Lord. It is a guilt offering. Any animal in a priest's family may eat the guilt offering. It is very holy, so it must be eaten in a holy place. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. The same rules are for both offerings. The priest who does the sacrificial sacrificing will get the meat for food. He will also get the skin from the burnt offering. Every grain offering belongs to the priest who offers it. That priest will get the grain offerings that were baked in an oven or cooked on a frying pan or in a baking dish. The grain offerings will belong to Aaron's sons. It doesn't make any difference if the grain offering are dry or mixed with oil. The sons of Aaron will all share this food. Fellowship offerings. This is the law of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings that you bring to the Lord. People can bring fellowship offerings to show their thanks to God. If you bring your sacrifice to give thanks, you should also bring unleavened bread mixed with oil, wafers with oil poured over them, and loaves of fine flour mixed with oil. You must also bring loaves of bread made with yeast to go with your fellowship offering. Offer one of these different kinds of bread as a gift to the Lord. Then it will belong to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the fellowship offerings. The meat of the fellowship offering must be eaten on the same day it was offered as a way of showing thanks to God. None of the meat shall remain until the next morning. If you bring a fellowship offering simply because you want to give a gift to God, or because it is part of a special promise you made with him or to him, the sacrifice should be eaten the same day you offer it. But if there is any left, it must be eaten the next day. If any meat from the sacrifice is still left over on the third day, it must be burned in the fire. If anyone eats the meat from the fellowship offering on the third day, the Lord will not accept it as a sacrifice. It will have no value for that person. And to the Lord, it will be like rotten meat. Whoever eats it will be responsible for their sin. People must not eat any meat that touches anything unclean. They must burn this meat in the fire. Whoever is clean may eat the meat from the fellowship offering, but anyone who is unclean and eats the meat from the fellowship offerings that was offered to the Lord must be separated from their people. If you touch something that is unclean, it doesn't matter if it is made unclean by a person, an animal, or some disgusting thing, and you will become unclean. And if you eat any of the meat from the fellowship offerings that was given to the Lord, you must be separated from your people. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, you must not eat any fat from your cattle, sheep, or goats. You may use the fat from any animal that has died by itself or was torn by other animals, but you must never eat it. Whoever eats the fat from an animal that was offered as a gift to the Lord must be separated from the people. No matter where you live, you must never eat blood from any bird or any animal. Anyone who eats blood must be separated from their people." Rules for offerings presented to God. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, if you bring a fellowship offering to the Lord, you must present that to give to the Lord yourself. You must bring the fat and the breast of the animal to the priest. Then he will lift it up. He will lift up the breast in front of the Lord to show it was presented to God. The priest will burn the fat on the altar, but the breast of the animal will belong to Aaron and his sons. You must also give the right thigh from the fellowship offering as a gift to the priest. That part of the fellowship offering will belong to the priest, who carries the blood and fat to the altar. I will accept the breast that was lifted up and the gift of the right thigh from the Israelites. Then I will give these things to Aaron and his sons. This is their share from the fellowship offerings of the Israelites forever. Those parts from the gifts offered to the Lord were given to Aaron and his sons. Whenever Aaron and his sons serve as the Lord's priests, they get their share of the sacrifices. The Lord commanded the Israelites to give those parts to the priests once they have been anointed. That will be their share from the Israelites forever. These are the laws about burnt offerings, grain offerings, sin offerings, guilt offerings, fellowship offerings, and offerings for when the priests are appointed. The Lord gave these laws to Moses on Mount Sinai when he commanded the Israelites to bring their offering to the Lord in the desert of Sinai. And that is it for Leviticus 5, 6, and 7. Just a short basic summary. We just read through all the different offerings or more of the different offerings that they gave to God fellowship offerings in order to show their gratitude and thanks to God. Different accidental sins and how they were supposed to go about guilt offerings for sin. A lot of it was a lot of rules. I really wonder, how they kept track of all of this. Like, did they have they have it written somewhere where it's like, yeah, fellowship offerings, you bring this, like, or was it just unspoken law or rules that you just supposed to know? Like, I can just imagine that they kind of had to study all of the different laws and rules that they had in order to really abide by every single thing. Or when they brought an offering to the meeting tent or to the tabernacle, did they have a sign up saying, like, I don't know, it's pretty interesting. It seems from reading all of this, it seems like they had a lot to follow. But yeah, so that's it for today. Moving on to the next chapters. Y'all have a blessed day, and just continue to worship God, continue to keep Him first, and make sure you go bless somebody today. All right, y'all have a blessed one. Peace.